Well, welcome everyone to Democratic Dialogue. This is the monthly program of the Gloucester Democratic City Committee. My name is Karen Bell, and I was formerly the chair of the City Committee and now am on the Executive Committee. Today we have with us our co-host, Dan Epstein, a relatively new member of the City Committee, and two guests, the City Clerk of Gloucester, Joanne Senos, and Marie Giambanco, who is the Assistant Registrar. Today's topic is called Gloucester Votes, and we're going to explore everything about that is important to know about how elections are conducted and how the city clerk's office, who is the local unit of government responsible for voting, safeguards, every registered voter's rights and the ballots. And we're going, hopefully, this will answer many of your questions. So I'm going to turn this over to Dan, who's going to conduct much of the questioning, and I may chime in as needed.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Karen. And I really wanted to say thank you so much, Joanne and Marie, for being with us. This is obviously a really busy time of year for you. It's just less than a week now until the Massachusetts primary for federal offices. So you guys must be very busy, and your jobs are really so important for Gloucester, for the democracy in our country. And we are entrusting it all to you. And so we really appreciate everything you do to make elections work here in Gloucester. It's critical for America. So I just wanted to start out, Joanne, by just getting a little bit of background about the city clerk and how the city clerk's office is structured, and also from you, Marie. So Joanne, as the city clerk, is that an elected position or appointed, and how long have you been in it? How did you come to it?
Okay, so the city clerk's position is appointed. I came into it in 2004. I've been with the city, I should back up a little bit, sorry. Been with the city for 22 years, and I started in the mayor's office and gone to several different offices. And in 2004, I worked in the city clerk's office as a principal clerk. In 2008, I was appointed as the assistant city clerk. And then I've been interim city clerk for 2009, half a year. And then after in 2016, when the former city clerk retired, I was interim. And then in September of 2016, I was appointed as the permanent city clerk. And my appointment term runs every 2 years. So every 2 years, I need to they reappoint me. Okay.
Wow. And is it the city council that makes the recommendation?
Yes, it is.
Well, that's a lot of really, estimable public service. So that's really great to hear. And what about you, Marie? You're assistant registrar, and how does that work? And what was your background?
I started with the city in 2006 and part-time in the clerk's office. And in 2009, I ended up with the assistant registrar position and have stayed with that ever since to date.
So yeah, well, again, some really service to the city and to democracy that I think we all really appreciate. I myself, I'm recently in Gloucester, and I've lived in other places in Massachusetts, as well as Virginia, Vermont, California, New York, places where I've been involved in elections, both sort of on the party campaign side, also working in elections. And I'm a political scientist who studies elections and democracy. And I feel it's really important to note how critical it is to make elections work really well. And it's not simple. And in the past, in the United States, in many elections, perhaps it has seemed simple and it seemed to go really smoothly because of the work that both of you have been doing and lots of other election officials around the country. Sometimes it goes not so smoothly. And unfortunately, sometimes we see more attention when things go wrong than when things go right. This year, we are certainly having some possible concerns about it being a difficult election year because of the coronavirus, of course, as well as other worries about knock-on effects from increases in mail-in voting. And we wanted to talk about some things about that. We wanted to talk too about what's the role of the city clerk's office with regard to election rules and laws as compared to the Secretary of State, since it's really the state laws that actually govern elections. So does the city clerk's office essentially just fulfill the policies and instructions that come from the Secretary of State? Or is there some latitude for the city clerk's office to make its own decisions about polling places or machines or any of that stuff? What's the relationship between the city clerk and the Secretary of State?
Okay, so we usually follow the guidelines of the Secretary of State's office. We don't have a lot of latitude in making our own decisions. We can, even the polling places, there's a state law. If you're a city, we can't combine polling places unless the ward lines touch each other. So we do have 2 polling places that are combined, 2-1 and 2-2, 3-1 and 3-2. But if we were to combine other polling places, the ward lines have to touch each other in order to combine them. So that is state law. And we did change a polling place only because we wouldn't be able to social distance. Ward 4-2 is now going to be at the Plum Cove School. It's only a 1/10 of a mile of a distance. And that is because there were no other places to put that polling place where it would be in the Ward 4-2, except for Beeman. And we felt that it would not be, we wouldn't be able to social distance and follow the safety and health guidelines that the state has brought down because of COVID.
Where had it previously been, the polling place?
Lanesville Community Church, Lanesville Community Center, I'm sorry, Community Center on Vulcan Street. Okay. And I don't know if you've ever been up there, but it's quite small. We do make it work on election day, but because of all the guidelines about social distance and 6-foot rule and all the safety PPE equipment that we have to put up, and it wasn't feasible to do that. So we had the city council voted, and then we have to get permission from the state to move the polling place, and plus the city council has to vote on that, and we have to send that into the state.
So that must have been a process of quite weeks or months before you could finally get it approved?
No, actually what happened is that a couple of months before the election, actually I think I started in May, telling the counselors that I think we need to move the polling place. And then my ward counselor, Councilor Gilman, got involved and she worked with me. And then we were just trying to find a place, and we figured it was Beeman School. We had to ask permission from the school committee to use the building as a polling location. And they voted unanimously to approve that. And then that vote had to go to city council to approve. And then after we had to send it to the Secretary of State's office, and there was a survey guide that we had to provide with that vote to show that that polling place would comply with all the rules and regulations of a polling location.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they approved it. They had no problem when I sent the paperwork in and the vote. So we're all set on that.
Yeah, well, that's That's really great. And it's really interesting, I think, to hear sort of all of the background of how these decisions get made. And I mean, as the city clerk, we associate, I guess, the word clerk with paperwork, and certainly, I guess that's your top priority. And I want to talk really mostly about elections, but also the city clerk's office is responsible for a lot more than just elections. I was just wondering, in terms of registrations and permits and things like that, in an election year like this one, how much of your work is on election stuff as opposed to all of the other things that you're also tasked with?
Well, what happens is that earlier in the year, when we have an election, we're preparing for election, we probably do half of elections and half of the customer service. Of course, as you know, city government still goes on. So even with COVID and with elections, city council meetings, any other meetings do go forward. Right now, we are in like almost 80%, 85% of elections. And that other 15% is customer service for permits or other customer services that we provide. And what we decided, due to COVID, we've been having appointments anyway. And then when City Hall opened up, I decided about 3 weeks ago that it was not possible to do customer service plus every day, plus the election work to get prepared for this election with the vote by mail ballots. So I got permission from the city council president and the mayor to have designated days to provide customer service by appointment only. And that will take place until we started this week, and it'll take place after the election. And I'll have to just decide whether the week after the election, whether I'll need to continue that in order to, certify the election and get everything ready, and what we have to do, and to put that election, material away, and then after prepare for the general election.
Yeah, I imagine this is going to be just the most intense year you'll have had.
Yes.
Hopefully 2021 will be a little more relaxed if there's no.
I'm hoping so.
Well, let me get to the voting by mail, which is, I think that is a big concern on people's minds. A lot more people are wanting to vote by mail, obviously, to avoid the potential contagion of going and standing in line at a polling place, going inside a polling place. There have been several presidential primaries we've seen in other states and other elections where many people did turn out to vote in person. Some of those look like they went more or less smoothly. But certainly with the state primary coming up next week, and even more the general election, that's going to be obviously the biggest test of voting by mail. We know that Governor Baker signed a bill eliminating the need for an excuse to vote by mail, and Secretary of State Galvin's office sent applications to, I guess, all registered voters. And so I was just curious, how are you guys doing with that? How does it compare to other years in terms of when you're doing absentee ballots? And are you able to, how many applications have you gotten so far, can you say? And are you able to keep up with it?
Okay, so as of 1 o'clock today, we pulled a report and we had 5,591 applications received and mailed out. We do have more cards today. Today is the deadline, August 26th at 5 o'clock to request a vote by mail ballot. And we'll be open till 5. We have a drop box outside of City Hall that we check 3 times a day, and we'll check that at 5 o'clock to see if there are any more cards in there. I do want to mention that we've received quite a few phone calls that the voters have not received their vote by mail card.
You mean the application?
The application, yes. So it wasn't sent to them, and Marie can attest she never received one, and another staff member in my office never received a vote by mail card from Secretary Galvin's office. So we will email an application, or we can offer them to come in and fill one out, but we can accept electronic signatures. So if people do reach out to us and they want to vote by mail, some of them, you can download the application from the Secretary of State's office, but we were also emailing a lot of people that they wanted to vote by mail. We have kept up with it. We have another, I would say, 50 ballots to mail out today. I don't know what's in the Dropbox yet, and we will get those out. So we've been keeping up with it. We've been working overtime. We've been keeping up with the workload. We are a little bit overwhelmed, okay? So because if we're overwhelmed now, I fear for the general election, how we're going to be able to keep up with the vote by mail. We do offer the early voting. I have to say our numbers have been low for early voting in person, but if anybody has any fears about going to the polls, I just want to say early voting lines are not like the polls. They're not like the polls. We were open Saturday for early voting for 5 hours, and we had 45 early voters in person. I believe Sunday we were open for 5 hours and we had almost the same amount, 42. So we haven't seen a line for early voting. So I do want to reassure people, if they decide to early vote in the general election, they might want to consider doing the early vote in person in Kairos Auditorium if they do not want to go to the polls. It is secure. We have the auditorium set up by wards and precinct. There is a ballot box there. At the end of the day, we empty the ballot box and we secure those ballots and we put them in the vault until we were able to scan them in and accept them.
Yeah, and we were interested in the early voting and mail ballot application counting process. There's going to be a lot more early votes and mail ballots this year. I guess in previous years, as I understand, all the ballots would be delivered, the early voter mail vote ballots would be delivered to the proper precincts and counted there in the precinct, fed through the machine on election day. Is that going to be how it is going to go this year? And is there going to be time to put all the ballots in and if there's lots more?
Yes, we were contemplating doing central tabulation, in which we would be able each day tabulate the ballots that were in. But due to staffing, okay, and not enough hours in the day, we are not going to be able to do that. So we decided not to. I've always wanted to try it, only because of, in the state, had some waivers on some of the guidelines, but with our staffing, we're just not going to get to it. We're trying to keep up entering the ballots, mailing out the ballots, and preparing the election materials for voting day. So it will be the same as we've done in the past year, is that the early voting and the absentees will go out to the polling places, and they will be counting at the polling places. We do have early voting poll workers. They're just designated each ward and precinct to, I will deliver the ballots and they will meet me there, and they are going to process the early voting ballots so that the poll workers that are in the check-in table, the clerk and the warden, can concentrate on the walk-in voters.
Okay. Well, and I guess hopefully we'll see that will go well with the primary, and then depending on logistics and resources, it sounds like is the real limitation.
Yes.
Yeah, just thinking about, how this election can go smoothly, and do you feel that you'd you could use some more resources in terms of personnel, in terms of paid personnel, and in terms of volunteers. I mean, for a group like Gloucester Democrats, is that something that we could try and round up some people? What were the ways that we could help?
Oh yes, we're always looking for volunteers, and it's very difficult. We usually have a great pool of volunteers and poll workers, but due to COVID, of course, in these times, they're not comfortable. We have some new poll workers in which we've gotten a training video because we can't train them in person, so we've sent them all that. So whatever position, whether they're constable, ward, clerk, or inspector, at least the new people can just see what's expected of them besides the printed material on that. So we're always looking for volunteers. Our problem is that we would have no problem, but due to COVID, I can't have them come into City Hall without social distancing. There is no space in City Hall, so the volunteers that have been willing to come in, we've had shifts. We've had our board of registrars in, like in the morning, and then we've had some counselors, city counselors come in and assist us with stuffing the ballots and or with the supervision of, elected official in order to get all these vote by mail ballots. So the community is really helpful, and we've never had a problem with volunteers, but because of COVID, that's kind of been an issue with us and even with poll workers. So it's the spacing.
Oh, sorry. What about from the perspective of voters, and making sure your job goes smoothly? I'm sure sending in your absentee ballot application, your mail vote ballot application early.
Yes.
Getting everything done early is, I'm sure, makes it easier for you because there's more time to spread it out. The last minute is always the worst. As a classroom teacher, I know everybody getting their assignments at the last minute is always a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
But in terms of early voting versus mail-in balloting, or the drop box that we know is by City Hall on the Warren Street side, which of those makes things go more smoothly for you?
Okay, so the vote by mail, I mean, people have had their cards or their applications early. I think they're just kind of like, they're in a dilemma on what to do. They really don't want to vote by mail, but they don't want to go to the polls. So I think some of the late applications are whatever they feel comfortable with. And that's why they're sending in their applications either on the deadline day or, the week. Of course, we appreciate everybody that sends it in early. But it's just a personal preference now and how the comfort level is for them to go vote. Early voting, like I said, that is, we set it up and everything. I think that's underutilized. I don't think a lot of people take advantage of the early voting in person at City Hall. Even in the last 2016 election, we didn't have high numbers of early voting as my fellow clerks have. So on that, the drop box has gone smooth. People feel more comfortable in putting their ballot in the drop box than having it mailed. I do have to say we ordered 2 more drop boxes earlier on, but due to the demand, the vendor, I believe, is going to deliver them this week. So we'll probably be more prepared in the general election for more drop boxes out there. And then what else did I not? I'm sorry, you asked a series.
Yeah, just in terms of smoothness of voting. And what about for people who have, they have requested a mail-in ballot, but maybe if they haven't gotten it yet, or they're worried that it's too close to the deadline to send it in, can they still come, even if they've gotten their ballot, can they still come and vote early or vote on election day, even if they already requested a mail-in ballot?
Yes, as long as they have not turned in their ballot and we haven't accepted it, they can go to the polling place and vote in person at the polling place, or come into City Hall and vote, early vote. And we've had several people this week do that. They have their ballot. They're afraid that it's not going to get to us in time. So we can't take that ballot back. We just tell them to hold on to it. Don't return it to us. And you can come in and early vote, yes.
And can people check to see if their mailed in ballot has been tabulated yet and accepted, or is there a way to find that out?
Yes, they can. They can go to the Secretary of State's office, and it's trackmyballot.com, and they'll be able to track when if we received it, whether it's pending, whether it's rejected, or whether we accepted it.
Wow. Well, I think we're actually coming to the end of this fascinating interview, and I actually hope that people listening and watching will feel, a lot more confident about the processes that you all are using. I mean, because I think this is an example of, city and state government really working together, and for me at least, it even gives me more confidence. How, if somebody does want to volunteer, what should they do?
Okay, they should contact the city clerk's office, okay? Whether you want to be a poll worker or just to volunteer. And you can volunteer, like I said, in the office, or volunteer at the polls. And we would just take your name and number, and we would just go over what we could offer, what positions or what type of areas that you can help us with. And then after, we would just assign days and times due to COVID.